Jonathan, what a pleasure to see you in Paris.
And you, Thomas.
You are, without a doubt, one of the best known faces at these conferences, but in fact in the industry. And at SG Berwin, you have created a tremendous track record. Now you've merged. Give us a quick summary of why you've done that.
Well, we've merged with King & Wood Mallesons, a three-way merger between King & Wood, largest firm in China, Mallesons, best-known firm in Australia, and us, to become King & Wood Malleson SJ Berwin. That's a bit of a mouthful. It'll change in due course. But, we've done it to globalise because we see the importance of China, the significance of China and Australia in everything we're doing. GPs, LPs, exits, investors into funds, growth strategies. Obviously there's more to go, and hopefully there'll be further developments beyond Australia and China, but China's just such an important country and impacts us, and the private equity scene there is thriving, and so we're very pleased to be part of it.
How big is this firm now?
We're 30 offices, 3,000 lawyers, and about $1 billion of turnover.
The magic billion.
$1 billion of turnover.
Dollars.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll change our currency soon, I'm sure, if you continue to be as successful. Jonathan, at this conference, there have been two themes that struck me. One is that the industry is still grappling with the influence, whatever it may be, of the new regulatory and the evolving regulatory regimes around the globe. I'd like to touch on that with you. The second is, as a result of the crisis, or certainly since the crisis, investors, institutional investors, the bedrock of ammunition for funds, insurers, pension funds, even the large family office, have changed their risk appreciation. Out of that have flown consequences for fundraising, the type of investments institutional investors want to make, and the terms and structures in which they make them. I'd like to touch on that as well.
Sure.
So let's go, without going into any detail, your perception of what your firm sees of the impact of the regulatory changes that are in the offing and still evolving.
Well, it's quite hard to understand what their impact is. Indeed, it's quite hard enough to understand what the rules actually are these days. One has to say that this has been a huge irritant. It's not obvious that there was a failure within private equity that this regulation is addressing, and so I think we see it largely as an impediment to doing business. But having said that, I'm very conscious of the fact that's an Anglo-Saxon view, and continental colleagues are embracing it very much more strongly, and do in many cases see some very strong advantages in it. So it's interesting to see different perspectives from different parts of Europe, partly depending on how easy or difficult it was for them to do business in their local country beforehand. For instance, from Italy point of view, doing business in Italy and seeking investors and placing funds was quite hard, and many of them see this as being liberalisation rather than restriction. I think what we're seeing is a bifurcation between those who see regulation as a real pain in the bottom and therefore are looking to go offshore, and others who are coming onshore in order to embrace it.
How concerned are you that the regulation, and we know what the intent is behind the regulation, but how concerned are you that there may be unintended consequences along the lines of what you have just mentioned, the bifurcation, the large firms with the resources are being supported and helped and have a competitive advantage, the medium firms are struggling, and new firms are discouraged from even entering the market against an uncertainty of what the real cost of this regulation is also going to be. Are you concerned about that?
I am. I think it will bifurcate the market. It's good for very small businesses, and it's a rounding error for very large businesses, but those in the middle, which are supposed to be being protected, it's a major cost.
Any hope that this might become a learning and that we might see some amelioration, or is your feeling, because I know that your firm has been very active in lobbying behind the scenes and participating in all kinds of events with regulators and authorities, open ear to listen, or is it set in stone now?
There has been, and the result is that it isn't life-threatening and can be coped with. The question is whether it's actually serving a useful purpose in the end of all that.
In terms of the type of structures that funds are deploying now, in terms of the reaction of the GP market to the change in attitude or the potential change in attitude to investors, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's been a remarkable amount of stability in both fund structures and the GP-LP relationship over the 30 years I've been involved. This crisis hasn't really changed things dramatically. I mean, clearly, there are flavours of the time, and at the moment there are a number of LPs who don't want to be committed in the same way as a blind pool fund would commit them, and therefore looking for separate managed accounts or more discretion over which investments they get put into. Going back to the first question, there are an increasing number that actually want to be onshore, not want to be associated with Jersey, Guernsey or Cayman or whatever, want to be seen to be socially useful, etc., which are all perhaps ripple effects of what's been happening. But it's still the case that the GP-LP relationship is the one that is predominating, and that's changed remarkably little.
Jonathan, as a general overview, outlook from one of the most experienced feet on the ground here, positive outlook for the industry or difficult times ahead?
Well, I think everything's picking up at the moment. I think the industry is a fantastic industry. It serves a really useful purpose. You can see how Africa, Asia, developing markets are embracing private equity as being the way forward, including former communist countries. I think Europe in particular has a lot to gain from a very active private equity market. I think, while not necessarily trumpeting it, governments are seeing that too, and therefore that will see private equity flourish over the coming years.
Jonathan, always a pleasure talking to you.
And
Thank
to you.
you.
Thank you.